Nobody talks about how painful it is to keep failing at life while pretending you are okay. People see your smile, your posts, your normal conversations, but they do not see the pressure in your mind when you are alone. Some people are not lazy. They are exhausted. Exhausted from trying again. Exhausted from disappointment. Exhausted from carrying silent struggles nobody notices. And this is where Book of Proverbs, chapter 24 becomes painfully real. Because it speaks to people who feel weak. People who fell. People who secretly feel like life is not moving the way they hoped. Now hear this clearly. One of the biggest lies people believe is this: everyone else is doing better than me. And that lie quietly destroys confidence from within. Because comparison hides reality. You compare your worst moments to someone else's best moments. You compare your private struggles to someone else's public success. And slowly, you start feeling behind in life. But today we are going deeper. Because many people are silently struggling in ways they never talk about. And the first struggle is this: failing financially. Nobody prepares you for how emotionally draining financial struggle can become. At first you think it is temporary. You tell yourself things will improve soon. But after repeated disappointment, something starts happening internally. You begin doubting yourself. You begin questioning your decisions. You begin wondering if you are becoming a failure. And the painful part is this: financial struggle affects more than money. It affects confidence. It affects motivation. It affects how you see yourself around other people. Some people avoid certain conversations because they are embarrassed about their financial condition. Some stop going out. Some become quieter. Some secretly feel ashamed because life is not looking the way they imagined. And what makes it worse is comparison. You see people succeeding publicly while you are privately struggling to stay afloat. And even if you are happy for them, part of you starts asking, "What about me?" Now hear this deeply. Financial struggle can make a person feel stuck mentally. Because when pressure keeps repeating, hope starts weakening slowly. That is why many people are emotionally tired. Not because they hate life, but because they are tired of trying and not seeing results. Tired of starting over. Tired of surviving instead of progressing. But this is where wisdom matters. Because Book of Proverbs chapter 24 says if you faint in the day of adversity, your strength is small. Notice something carefully. It does not say adversity will not come. It says do not collapse when it comes. And that is the battle. Staying mentally alive while life keeps hitting you. Continuing to believe while results are delayed. Continuing to rise after disappointment. Now hear this clearly. Struggling financially does not make you worthless. Being behind does not make you useless. And taking longer than expected does not mean your life is over. Some people listening right now are carrying silent financial pressure nobody knows about. You smile publicly. You respond normally. But privately, you are worried about your future. And honestly, that pressure can break people internally if they are not careful. Because repeated disappointment slowly attacks confidence. But listen carefully. You are not just fighting for money. You are fighting to not lose yourself during the struggle. And that is why you cannot give up now. And after struggling financially for a long time, something dangerous can begin to happen internally. You slowly start giving up on yourself. Not loudly. Not publicly. Quietly. You stop believing in your own potential. You stop expecting good things from your life. You stop trying as hard because disappointment has convinced you that nothing will change anyway. And honestly, this happens to more people than you realize. Because repeated failure changes how a person thinks. At first you fail at something. Then after a while, you start feeling like the failure itself. That is the dangerous part. When disappointment moves from your situation into your identity. Now hear this deeply. There are people smiling outside, but internally they already gave up on themselves. They still wake up every day. They still talk normally. But deep down, they no longer believe they can become better. And that mindset quietly destroys people. Because once a person loses belief in themselves, motivation starts dying slowly. Hope weakens. Effort reduces. Everything starts feeling pointless. Some people stopped applying for opportunities because they already expect rejection. Some stop trying new things because they are tired of disappointment. Some already convinced themselves that life will never improve for them. And the painful part is this: many people do not even realize when they started giving up on themselves. It happened gradually, through repeated setbacks, repeated delays, repeated disappointment. That is why Book of Proverbs, chapter 24 is powerful. Because it reminds you that falling is not the end. The righteous fall, but they rise again. Notice that carefully. Falling is mentioned. Failure is acknowledged. Weak moments are real. But the difference is this: they do not stay down permanently. And that is what life tries to steal from you: the willingness to rise again. Because once life convinces you to stop trying, it has already weakened you internally. Now hear this clearly. You may have failed before. You may have disappointed yourself. You may have made mistakes you regret deeply. But you cannot allow those moments to become your identity. Because one season of failure does not define your entire life. One bad period does not cancel your future. And one disappointment does not mean you should give up on yourself completely. Some of you are harder on yourselves than anybody else. You replay your failures constantly. You compare yourself to others. You judge yourself based on where you thought you would be by now. And slowly, you start feeling ashamed of your own journey. But listen carefully. Life is not moving at the same speed for everybody. Some people bloom early, some later. Some struggle longer before breakthrough comes. That does not mean your story is finished. And this is the truth many people need to hear. You are allowed to feel tired. You are allowed to feel discouraged sometimes. But you are not allowed to completely abandon yourself. Because if you stop believing in yourself completely, you stop fighting for your future. And once that happens, life becomes survival instead of purpose. Another struggle many people hide is constantly starting over. Nobody talks enough about how frustrating it feels to rebuild your life repeatedly. To finally make progress, then suddenly lose momentum again. To think things are improving, then watch everything fall apart again. At first you stay hopeful. You tell yourself this new beginning will be different. You push yourself to try again. But after restarting many times, exhaustion begins to settle into your mind. Because starting over is not just physical. It is emotional. It drains confidence. It drains energy. It makes people afraid to hope too much again. Some people are tired of introducing themselves as trying again, tired of rebuilding financially, tired of recovering emotionally, tired of returning to the beginning while watching others move ahead. And honestly, repeated restarting can make a person feel cursed internally. Like no matter what they do, life keeps resetting their progress. That is why some people stop getting excited about opportunities. Because deep down, they are scared it will fail again. They are scared of becoming hopeful, only to become disappointed again. Now hear this deeply. Repeated disappointment changes how people approach life. It makes them guarded. It makes them doubtful. It makes them emotionally cautious. And slowly, they stop fully believing things can actually work out for them. But this is where Book of Proverbs chapter 24 becomes important again. Because wisdom understands that life will sometimes collapse unexpectedly. Plans fail. Situations change. Progress gets interrupted. But the chapter keeps pushing one truth quietly: rise again. Not because restarting is easy. Not because disappointment does not hurt. But because staying down permanently destroys even more. Now think about this honestly. Some of the strongest people you admire today are people who had to rebuild themselves many times privately. You only see the finished version now. You did not see the nights they questioned themselves. And that is what many people forget. Starting over does not mean your life is over. Sometimes it means life is forcing you to rebuild differently. Smarter, wiser, stronger. Yes, it is painful watching things fail repeatedly. Yes, it hurts feeling like you are behind again. Yes, it is exhausting trying to recover when your energy is already low. But hear this clearly. You cannot allow repeated restarting to convince you that your future is hopeless. Because some people quit one step before things finally begin to change. Some stop believing too early. Some abandon themselves during the rebuilding season. And honestly, rebuilding your life quietly while pretending to be okay publicly is one of the hardest emotional battles a person can face. Now pause here for a moment and really think about your own life. Because many of these struggles are hidden behind normal smiles and normal conversations. But internally, people are fighting battles nobody sees. If this message is speaking to you already, take a second and like this video. Not just to support the channel, but as a sign that you are choosing not to give up on yourself. And if you are following this journey through the 30 Days of Proverbs, subscribe. Because these messages are not just motivation. They are reminders that even in difficult seasons, wisdom can still rebuild your life. Now stay with me. Because the next struggles go even deeper into emotional exhaustion, hidden pressure, and the silent battles many people are carrying every day. Another struggle many people hide is losing motivation. And honestly, this one is dangerous because it happens slowly. You do not wake up one morning suddenly unmotivated. It happens after too many disappointments, too many delays, too many moments where life did not go the way you hoped. At first, you are excited about your future. You have energy. You have ideas. You believe things will improve. But after life keeps hitting the same area repeatedly, your passion slowly starts fading. And the painful part is this. You still want a better life. You just no longer have the same strength to chase it. Some people are mentally exhausted from carrying responsibilities nobody helps them with. Some are emotionally drained from trying so hard without seeing visible progress. Some are simply tired of hoping for things that never seem to happen. And because of that, motivation starts disappearing quietly. You begin procrastinating more. You stop putting effort into things you once cared about. You delay important decisions. Not because you are lazy, but because internally you feel defeated already. That is what many people do not understand. Sometimes lack of motivation is not laziness. Sometimes it is emotional exhaustion hiding underneath silence. And honestly, exhausted people become dangerous to themselves. Because when motivation disappears, discipline becomes weak. And when discipline becomes weak, people slowly start giving up on life without realizing it. Now hear this deeply. Losing motivation changes how you see the future. You stop expecting things to improve. You stop planning seriously. You stop believing your effort matters anymore. And that mindset quietly destroys potential. Because many people still have greatness inside them, but disappointment buried their energy. Failure weakened their confidence. Delay killed their excitement. That is why Book of Proverbs chapter 24 says if you faint in adversity, your strength is small. Again, notice something carefully. The chapter acknowledges adversity. It acknowledges pressure. It acknowledges difficulty. But it warns you not to collapse internally because of it. Because life will test your energy. It will test your consistency. It will test whether you can continue moving even when motivation disappears. And honestly, that is one of adulthood's hardest realities. Sometimes you must continue without excitement. Continue without applause. Continue without immediate results. Now hear this clearly. Motivation comes and goes. But if your entire life depends on feeling motivated, you will struggle to stay consistent. Some days you will feel inspired. Other days you will feel emotionally empty. But your future still depends on what you choose to do during those empty moments. And this is what many people secretly battle every day. Waking up tired mentally. Smiling publicly. Pretending to be okay. while internally struggling to find the strength to keep going again. But listen carefully. Just because your motivation is low does not mean your purpose is gone. Just because you feel tired does not mean your life has ended. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is keep moving while emotionally exhausted. Another struggle many people hide is feeling embarrassed after failing. Nobody really talks about the shame that comes after things fall apart publicly. The embarrassment of telling people your plans, then watching those plans fail. The discomfort of being seen as someone who was supposed to succeed, but is still struggling. And honestly, failure hits differently when other people know about it. Because now it is not just disappointment. It becomes humiliation. You start overthinking conversations. You become uncomfortable around certain people. You feel small when others ask how life is going. Some people avoid old friends because they are ashamed of where they are in life. Some avoid family gatherings because they are tired of explaining why things still have not worked out. Some secretly feel like they disappointed everybody around them. And the painful part is this: embarrassment after failure can damage confidence deeply. Because once shame enters your mind, you stop seeing yourself clearly. You begin judging yourself harshly. You replay your mistakes repeatedly. You start believing your failures are proof that you are not capable enough. And slowly, shame changes your behavior. You become quieter, less expressive, less hopeful, less willing to try again publicly. Because failing privately is painful. But failing where people can see it feels even heavier emotionally. That is why many people now hide their dreams. Not because they no longer have ambition, but because they are scared of failing in front of people again. Now hear this deeply. Shame is dangerous because it convinces people to isolate themselves emotionally. It makes them withdraw. It makes them feel unworthy of respect. And honestly, some people listening right now are carrying silent embarrassment nobody knows about. They laugh normally. They post normally. They speak normally. But internally, they feel ashamed of how their life currently looks. But this is where Book of Proverbs, chapter 24 quietly gives hope again. Because falling is mentioned without condemnation. The focus is not the fall itself, the focus is rising again. Notice that carefully. The chapter does not pretend failure never happened. It simply refuses to let failure become the final identity of the person. And that is important. Because your embarrassment is not your identity. Your worst season is not your permanent name. Your failed attempt is not the full story of your life. Yes, people may have seen you fail. Yes, some may even judge you unfairly. But hear this clearly. A person who rises again after failure is stronger than someone who never had to fight internally. Because rebuilding confidence after embarrassment requires courage. Trying again after humiliation requires strength. Standing back up while people remember your previous failure requires maturity. And honestly, many people never realize how strong they became simply because they survived seasons that almost broke them emotionally. Another struggle many people hide is pretending to be okay publicly. And honestly, this has become normal now. People smile while exhausted, laugh while hurting, post confidently while internally battling anxiety, pressure, disappointment, and confusion. Because many people no longer feel safe enough to admit they are struggling. So instead, they perform strength. They act fine. They keep conversations shallow. And slowly, they become emotionally trapped inside themselves. Some people are tired of always saying, "I'm okay," when they are clearly not okay internally. But they do not want pity. They do not want judgment. They do not want to look weak in front of others. So they keep everything hidden. And the dangerous part is this: the longer people pretend, the harder it becomes to be honest about what they truly feel. You start losing connection with yourself emotionally. You become used to suppressing pain instead of processing it. You become good at surviving publicly while quietly breaking internally. And honestly, that kind of emotional pressure can become exhausting. because carrying pain silently drains people mentally over time. Some people listening right now are emotionally tired, but nobody around them knows the full truth. Nobody sees the pressure they carry at night. Nobody sees how often they overthink their future. Nobody sees how close they are to giving up sometimes. That is why people can look fine outside while struggling deeply inside. And social media makes this worse. Because now people feel pressure to constantly appear happy, successful, progressing, and confident, even when life is not going well privately. So instead of healing honestly, people learn how to hide better. Now hear this deeply. Pretending to be okay does not remove pain. It only delays confrontation with it. Because ignored emotions do not disappear. They build quietly over time. And eventually, the weight becomes heavier internally. That is why Book of Proverbs chapter 24 speaks so strongly about inner strength during adversity. Because difficult seasons do not just test your finances or progress, they test your emotional endurance too. And honestly, emotional exhaustion is real. Waking up every day carrying invisible pressure is tiring. Acting strong constantly is tiring. Pretending everything is under control when it is not is tiring. But hear this clearly. You do not always need to pretend. You do not always need to carry everything alone silently. Because one of the strongest things a person can do is become honest about what they are actually struggling with internally. And sometimes, healing truly begins the moment pretending finally stops. And after pretending for so long, another silent struggle slowly begins to grow. Comparing yourself to other people. And honestly, comparison destroys peace quietly. Because no matter how far you have come, somebody else will always appear ahead of you in something. Some people compare finances. Some compare relationships. Some compare success. Some compare physical appearance. Some compare timelines. And without realizing it, they slowly become unhappy with their own lives. The dangerous part about comparison is this. It makes you ignore your own progress while focusing only on what others are achieving. You stop appreciating how far you survived. You stop recognizing your own growth. You stop seeing your own journey clearly because your eyes are constantly fixed on somebody else's life. And social media has made this even worse. Because now people compare their real life struggles to somebody else's carefully edited highlights. You see people traveling, winning, building businesses, getting married, buying things, smiling publicly, and slowly, you begin questioning your own life. You start asking yourself difficult questions privately. Why is my life not moving like this? Why do I still feel behind? Why does success seem easier for everybody else? And honestly, comparison can make people feel like failures even when they are making progress slowly. Because once comparison enters your mind deeply, gratitude starts disappearing. Peace starts weakening. Confidence starts dropping. That is why some people secretly feel frustrated all the time. Not because life is completely bad, but because they constantly measure themselves against others. Now hear this deeply. Everybody's life moves differently. Everybody's process is different. Everybody's timing is different. Some people bloom early, some later. Some struggle longer before breakthrough comes. That does not mean your journey is meaningless. And this is where Book of Proverbs, chapter 24 quietly warns against envy. Because wisdom understands something many people forget. Looking at other people too much can distract you from building your own life properly. Because while you are busy watching others, your own life still needs attention. Your own growth still matters. Your own healing still matters. Now hear this clearly. Comparison will make you feel poor while ignoring what you already have. It will make you feel behind while ignoring how far you already came. And honestly, many people are emotionally suffering not because they are failing completely, but because they cannot stop measuring themselves against everybody else. But listen carefully. Your journey does not need to look like somebody else's to still have value. Your progress does not need public applause to still matter. And sometimes, peace begins the moment you stop using other people's lives to judge your own worth. Another struggle many people hide is secretly feeling left behind in life. And honestly, this feeling becomes heavier as time passes. Because at a certain point, you start looking around and noticing other people moving into seasons you thought you would already be in by now. Some people expected to be financially stable already. Some thought they would have achieved more by this age. Some imagined life differently years ago. But reality turned out slower, harder, more complicated than expected. And that can quietly break a person internally. Because when life does not match the picture you had in your mind, disappointment begins settling into your heart slowly. You start feeling late. Late in success. Late in progress. Late in life generally. And even when nobody says anything directly, you begin pressuring yourself internally. Some people now rush decisions because they feel behind. Some enter unhealthy relationships because they feel time is moving. Some force progress because they are scared of being left out while others move ahead. And honestly, pressure makes people make dangerous decisions emotionally. Because once you feel behind in life, patience becomes difficult. You stop trusting process. You stop respecting timing. You just want movement, any movement, so you can stop feeling stuck. That is why many people are mentally restless now. They are not only fighting life problems, they are fighting invisible pressure from comparison, expectations, and timelines. Now hear this deeply. Feeling behind can make people forget something important. Life is not a race happening equally for everybody. Some people start early and struggle later. Some struggle early and become stable later. Some people's biggest breakthroughs happen after long seasons of delay. And this is where Book of Proverbs chapter 24 becomes important again. Because wisdom teaches patience during difficult seasons. It teaches consistency even when visible progress feels slow. Because not every season of your life will look impressive publicly. Some seasons are simply for surviving. Some are for rebuilding. Some are for learning strength quietly. And honestly, surviving difficult seasons without completely losing yourself is already progress many people overlook. Now hear this clearly. Just because your journey looks slower, does not mean your future is empty. Just because your life feels delayed, does not mean you are forgotten. Some of the strongest people become strong precisely because life forced them to grow slowly. Forced them to mature through pressure. Forced them to develop patience the hard way. And sometimes, what feels like delay is actually preparation happening quietly underneath the surface. And the final struggle many people hide is losing hope that life can still become better. And honestly, this is the most dangerous one of all. Because once hope disappears, people stop fighting internally. At first, you still believe things will change. You keep trying. You stay patient. You encourage yourself. But after too many disappointments, too many delays, too many emotional battles, something inside you slowly becomes tired. You stop expecting good news. You stop feeling excited about the future. You stop imagining better days because life has disappointed you so many times already. And that kind of hopelessness is heavy. Because now you are not only struggling with life externally, you are struggling to keep yourself alive emotionally. Some people listening right now are not physically tired, they are mentally tired. Tired of carrying pressure silently. Tired of fighting battles nobody sees. Tired of trying to stay positive while life keeps testing them repeatedly. And honestly, some people have become so used to disappointment that they now expect things to go wrong automatically. That is what pain does when it stays too long without healing. It changes expectation. It trains the mind to prepare for failure instead of possibility. But this is where Book of Proverbs chapter 24 becomes deeply powerful. Because even after talking about adversity, weakness, falling, and pressure, the chapter still pushes one message repeatedly. Rise again. Not because life is easy, not because pain is fake, but because your story is not finished yet. Now hear this clearly. You may feel tired. You may feel delayed. You may feel disappointed with how life currently looks. But you cannot allow temporary seasons to permanently destroy your hope. Because many people who eventually found peace almost gave up completely before life changed. Many people who eventually became stable once felt hopeless too. And honestly, one of the strongest things a person can do is continue believing quietly while life still looks uncertain. That takes strength. That takes courage. That takes faith. Now listen carefully. You survived things that once made you think you would completely break. You are still here after disappointment. Still here after pressure. Still here after emotional exhaustion. And that means something. Because even though life hit you hard, part of you still refused to completely die internally. So do not abandon yourself now. Do not conclude your life too early. Do not let pain become the final voice speaking over your future. Because this season is not the full story. This struggle is not your final identity. And this chapter of your life is not the end. Father Lord, for every person silently struggling internally, strengthen them. For every person losing hope quietly, restore their strength again. Help them rise emotionally, mentally, financially, and spiritually. Heal the discouragement they carry privately. Heal the shame. Heal the exhaustion. And remind them that difficult seasons do not last forever. Give them wisdom during confusion, peace during pressure, and strength to continue even when life feels heavy. In Jesus' name, Amen. If this message spoke to your heart, like this video as a reminder that you are not finished yet. Subscribe and continue this journey with me through these 30 days of Proverbs. And in the comments, say this boldly: I will rise again. Because sometimes, the people smiling the most publicly are fighting the hardest battles privately. And many people around you have no idea how much strength it took for you to simply keep going.